another, this one here really do it for you.
Baby, you need it. Yeah, baby, I need it. Baby, come down to it. Let me show you how to do it.
Y'all about my big bro Gerard in the podcast crew.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome everybody to the Floor Is Yours podcast. I am Gregory McKinney and I'm so excited to be with you once again. Hey, I feel like a preacher doing a revival. This is our 5th day straight doing a show, and I tell you, but it's all been worth it. These have been some of the most fascinating, most wonderful conversations I think I've had in a long time. And today is going to be like the same. I mean, we're going to give it to you raw and uncut. Real and relevant is our goal. And so this week we have been highlighting the upcoming event, the Create the Life I Want event, to be held in Texarkana, Texas, September 27th at Radiant Church. And so in preparation for that, we've been going deep into some conversations that you will hear talked about at the conference. And so we want to give you a preview of what real and relevant conversations sound like. Tonight, we got a deep one. We're going to talk about parenting and its effects on our mental health. But before we do that, I want everyone to like, share, and subscribe the podcast. Tell everybody, your mama, your daddy, your dog, your goldfish, that the Floor Is Yours podcast is on. We want everybody to pull up to the table and get some of this good food that we got serving. Tonight, don't adjust your sets. Gerard may look a little different to you. I have a special guest with me tonight, the one and the only Dr. Elizabeth Jennings. She's in the house. She was with us a few nights before, so she's not a visitor. She's family. Dr. Jennings, say hello to the people.
Hey, so glad to be on another episode. I'm really excited about the topic and the conversation. Looking forward to talking with the audience, hearing questions, and really conversing with you on such an important topic. So thank you for the invite again this week.
Hey, thank you for making us great.
Also for always opening and feeling like family every time the invite is there.
Always. Yeah, Gerard is a cool dude. We couldn't do it without him. So we're definitely happy to have him part of the team. Tonight, Dr. Jennings, we're going to be talking about something that is particularly important that affects us not only as children, but as adults and as parents, male and females. We all are impacted by our upbringing, our childhood, parenting styles in some way. So tonight we're going to be talking about raising kids and shaping minds, how parenting affects our mental wellness. And so there's a lot to be said about it. I always say that we are programmed as a child, and as an adult, we spend the rest of our lives reprogramming our system just to try to get it right. What's your take on, just kind of like a quick little introduction to the topic, what's your take on how parenting affects us overall?
Yeah, I think it's major. As we go through this conversation and we think about just people in society and their experiences, everyone comes, different. Everyone has a different structure of what has been the DNA and what's been kind of registered in their memory of experiences. And then to be able to take those experiences when you become a parent and fix it and reroute it and be able to kind of work on producing something that will produce a human that is able to live in this world is such a huge responsibility, but it's also such a huge blessing. Some at times it can be some may consider it a burden. Just if we could just be honest with parenting and what that's like, the perception of it. Some can see it being one of the greatest joys in this world, to be able to be blessed to be a parent. And so really being able to not judge with this conversation, but really allow some honest dialogue about the ups and downs of what they might look like based on the different dynamics and how parents can navigate that to not only help their youth mental health, but also their own. Like, how do you maintain that balance wherever you are along the journey. And so I'm super excited to share some professional input, some personal input, and also learn from you also on the topic.
Well, thank you. You know, that's an interesting point that you brought out about how parenting affects not only the child, but also the parent. I think we take it for granted that the parent is also along with the journey, is along for the journey also. And that for, you know, many people, it's their first time being a parent. They don't, it's not a rule book. There's not a blueprint. For many of us, we didn't have a proper example of how to be a loving, caring, mentally strong parent. And we're just out here winging it every day, you know? And so it just calls the reasons there's going to be a few fumbles along the way, and we're all just trying to fumble our way to success. But I want to give you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Nature versus nurture, and you have to pick a side. What do you think is more impactful to us in our development as a human being? Is it the genetics that we were given or the experiences that we had? Nature versus nurture. You can't say both, because I know everybody wants to say both.
Yeah, I will speak on, personally, looking at it and then just working with others. Environment and the way people are raised has a very big impact. We cannot say that the other side don't, but I want to speak on how environmental influences really plays a part. Just back professionally, I'm an occupational therapist. And so on that end, I work with special needs children and special needs family, and being able to realize that this child may have been born with certain deficits. But if they're in an environment that is nurturing, if that family is able to work with, and we teach and we create a plan and we create an environment that stimulates what they may not be able to experience versus someone who hasn't had that experience, who may have the same diagnosis, the outcome, the results, although it's so different, right? Whether it's a physical ailment, whether it's a mental ailment, it matters so much. And so I highlight that because a lot of times people may say, based on the cards that I'm dealt with, this is just how it has to be, or, this is just how I am. And that is not true when it comes to, we do have the ability to adapt, to change, to grow, and to really plant positive seeds that will grow what we water and what we plant it with also.
You know, the ability to adapt, I think, is one of the biggest and most important traits that we can develop as a human being, the ability to pivot, because there are times when you are caught off guard, and life is really just one huge pivot after another. You get thrown one challenge after the next, and you have to have that mental fortitude to be able to say, what is best for me now in this particular situation? When I think about parenting, one of the things that I am uniquely surprised about is how two children can grow in the same household, eat the same food, go to the same church, have the same parents, go to the same school, and have two different completely personalities. And so that does contribute to, some things are just wiring, natural wiring that God has put into us. And also it's a genetic thing. Some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, which brings me to the point of how things affect us and land on us. And so I remember as a child, I was a particularly sensitive child. I didn't take criticism very well. I was one that would be emotionally affected, affected by it. Like I would want to cry or I want to hide. I faced a lot of shame because where friends could tease one another, it kind of hit me a little harder. But as an adult, I can see why, because I have a great deal of empathy, and that's why I do what I do, and it's why I'm a life coach and I speak into the lives of other people, because I have that emotional connection, right? But what I have seen is that there were other people who grew up in similar households as I did. So my household was volatile at times, and my parents were raw and uncut a lot of times, and so they weren't particularly affectionate parents. However, they did love me, but they were a little bit rough around the edges, and so I find it very fascinating that people who had the same experiences I did use that as a tool in order to develop their personality, where I saw it as a hurdle that I had to overcome. And so that also kind of lends itself to maybe nurture has a certain level of influence also. Uh, Speaking spiritually, God has a specific plan for us. And so we're wired a certain way to accomplish that plan. In an ideal world, we would have parents to say, I see this gift in you. I see this particular characteristic in you, this proclivity in you, which I think is going to lead you down this road. And parents are sensitive to that, but sometimes they're not. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to learn. This is what I always say. You don't always get the parents you want, but you do get the parents you need. And so we ultimately got to reflect and rest in the fact that God is our ultimate parent and that he did give us what the tools that we needed. So
That's good.
a little bit about myself. I got two daughters. One is 18. She's a freshman in college, and I'm extremely proud of her. My oldest is 22. Extremely proud of her, and she's also in college. My oldest is studying interior design, and my youngest is studying architectural engineering. I have to say that very slowly for our fumble. So I'm very, very, very proud of them. And my biggest accomplishment in life, and this is no hyperbole, is being a dad. I love, love, love being a father. But being a father of two girls was at times, although I felt it's the best fit for me, it opened up my eyes to the journey that women have in a unique, more intimate way. And
Mhm.
so I was then forced to even at times question my male stereotypes about women,
Yeah.
my approach to women, the way that I speak to women, because having two daughters who I love unconditionally forced me to kind of shift my thinking a lot, and I'm better for it. So, tell us about your children, and did they kind of shape you and shift some of your thinking along the way?
Yeah. Parenting has been such a life like altering
Yeah,
journey for me. Thank you for sharing your side and things like that. For me, I'll be able to kind of show up from a few different angles, right?
yeah,
Um, there are my kids initially, there was a two-parent home for quite a few years. And then when my oldest, I have a daughter and a son, and so I have one of each. When my oldest son was probably about 7 or 8 is when we divorced. And so for the past 10 years, I've been a single mom and
mm,
navigating that side of it to, a son and a daughter. And so just being able to understand my daughter is now 16 years old. She's
ooh, you the
into
thick of it.
She's a wrestler, track, very athletic
Yeah,
in her abilities and very creative. And then my son is 19 years old and he just also graduated. He's in school for psychology, but
excellent.
he's been more of the emotional side of things. My daughter's more aloof at times. So it's very interesting when we have certain stereotypes where sometimes we assume that, the females are going to be the ones that are more soft and sensitive.
Yeah,
And sometimes,
yeah,
the male, well, my kids are different on that end. And so really
hmm,
being able to respect them for who they are and not necessarily what society may put on them or assume in regards to activities, in regards to things that they, would get involved in. That is where, to me as a parent, and the word I'm going to use that to me has been life changing is mindful. Being very intentional and practicing mindfulness, meaning being present with my children at every stage that they are at and understanding they have the ability to pivot, to change. And it's not my place to push on them something that may be, where I'm looking too far in the future or worried about things that have happened in my past, but I'm able to see them for who they are right in front of me. That's been a
hmm,
big lesson along the journey of parenting from what we were talking about today.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting when you are a parent of multiple children. Was made aware of when I was raising my daughters was that you have to love them both differently, but the same. We treat each of our children fairly, but we treat them differently according to what their needs are at the same time. And so I
Yeah.
can only imagine having a boy and a girl. I had two girls, so I was always in the same lane all the time. But with a boy and a girl, there has to be a different approach from time to time, I'm assuming, of how you communicate with your son versus your daughter. Did you find the difference in communicating with your children, was it due more to gender or was it due more to personality?
More than personality,
Okay.
and really like taking the time to get to know my children.
Hmm.
And like I said, that's where all the roles, because like I said, there's certain stereotypes, right, that we have
Yeah.
when it comes to gender. And my children are a lot different on that realm. Like like I said, the things and the habits that my daughter liked. Um, she wasn't into cheerleading. She wasn't into some of the, foofy dresses or whatever. She has a very unique style, and learning to embrace that side of her and not force, something that she was uncomfortable with or whatever has been really important. She's into natural hair, she's not into makeup, and just certain things like that that sometimes, as on that side when it comes to girls, we assume, and those weren't things that she liked. And so really taking the time to have those talks at the ice cream shop where we really just kind of got to know her and talk more. And we actually wrote a book about bonding and what that relationship, because it hasn't always been easy. Because my daughter is very much a daddy's girl, and so
Shout out.
navigating and making sure that we can still have a positive relationship as she navigates, and not seeing the opposite of what that might look like was really like something that we really had to work conflict through, to get to a point where we are now, which is good, where we can have our conversations and there's mutual respect, as with a 16-year-old, which I'm so grateful for, because that's a struggling age when it comes to our girls wanting to find their independence with parenting and balancing that, but still having that closeness where, I can come in a room and hug her, and, I still can have that. And I'm really grateful for those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other
I
side,
think
go ahead.
I think we could really have a whole show about that mother-daughter dynamic. I mean, it is a very interesting journey to say the least. Every woman that I had a unique journey with their mother, where there's been a lot of high highs and a lot of low lows.
Yeah.
And generally around the age of maybe like 25 or so, they kind of settle at a happy place or settle at an understanding of what this relationship is going to be like. But that is a particularly interesting journey within itself, the mother-daughter dynamic.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
Exciting though. And then for my son, like I said, some of the normal so-called masculine like sports that we would look at, really respecting
Yeah.
him for his ability to like history and reading and things like that. So as we navigate and everyone is listening in, I think it's so vital to truly take those moments to really get to know the person that's in front of you, when it
Hmm.
comes to parenting, because if not, there it could lead to resentfulness and a lot of other things that we'll probably get into, strategies to avoid, that makes parenting such a rough bump in the road, as you navigate through it.
You said an interesting thing to get to know the person that's in front of you. There comes a time in everyone's parent journey, generally between 12 and 14, I would suspect, where you look at your child and you are become aware that they are their own person, that they are now coming home with their own identity, only their own thoughts and preferences that you had no influence on whatsoever. And that becomes a time where you do have to understand this is no longer my child, but this is an individual. This is another human being along the life journey like I was. And so we sometimes forget that we are stewards over our children, but they are still their own human being. And as much as we want to be a parent and keep proper boundaries and keep them safe, and as we should, there also is a certain level of respect and space we got to provide for this other human being to have their own particular journey. And that sometimes is bittersweet because you have to acknowledge that your child is slowly walking away. They're leaving you. They're becoming their own person. They're no longer your baby anymore, because when they're born, maybe it's just me, but you do look at your child as your possession. Like, I own this. This is mine. But generally around the age between 12 and 14, you begin to go, whoa, wait a minute. You are your own human being outside of me. And that sometimes is an adjustment for parents to make, I would assume.
I really like the way you worded that, because sometimes what I'll hear posed is, are we raising little adults or, or children? And I like the way you talked and or phrased it as an individual as opposed to a little adult, because at times when we take on those terminology, sometimes we rob our kids of our children or whatever we want to refer the little individuals as understanding, yes, they are growing, but they sometimes there's too much adult type pressure and experiences that's put on them too soon, and they're not able to really handle that. And so really not robbing that youth of their childhood or that ability to still have that playfulness and things like that is so vital, because these days there's so much pressure to grow up too soon. And what's happening is when they're older, they're actually regretting that. They're like, I never got a chance to, be a child, or never got a chance to experience that. And so really paying attention to what that can do when there's too much pressure to be an adult too soon, and responsibility place is something that's very vital. But when we're able to see them as individuals, we can still recognize, there's normal developmental things that they're going to go through, normal developmental phases, and understanding, doing our research. Being a parent requires really like learning and understanding and studying as if you would study a course to truly get to know like children, how they're changing and how society is an effect on them. And you can't just like go with the flow, especially these days. And so really staying informed and aware, and allowing that to kind of continue to grow and develop as parents is really important too. Like there should be a growth happening on both sides as we're seeing it, as that relationship is evolving over time.
I think the childhood is just being stripped away in our society as a whole. I mean, once your child gets a cell phone in their hand, they're now being thrust into the world of adults. I've said this before jokingly to people. I say, if I was in charge, social media would have office hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It will go off every night. And then you're forced to go entertain and be with your family and do something different. And then also, I think that if I was in charge, you would have to be at least 16 before you can get a social media account. There's no reason why a 9-year-old should be on Instagram or Facebook and comparing themselves to someone else, looking at body types and thinking, am I pretty enough? Am I strong enough? Am I tall enough? Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? None of that needs to be intruded upon a child's childhood. And so I think one of the best protective measures we can do as parents is allow our children to be children, just to echo the sentiments that you just made, because children are slowly being robbed of just the privilege of being a kid. Yeah. You spoke earlier that this is interesting. I want to kind of get into some deep waters here. You spoke earlier about how we have stereotypes between boys and girls. What about stereotypes between fathers and mothers? There are certain strengths, I will admit, and I'm a bit more traditional by nature. There are certain strengths that I think men bring, and certain strengths that I think that women bring. Now, as we talk about these different dynamics of family structures, right? So we got the two-parent household and we got the single-parent household. You got a single dad raising his sons and or daughters. You got a single mom raising her sons and or daughters, and you got mom and dad at home together. As we look at these stereotypes, do you think that there are particular roles that gender that parents, I'm sorry, that fathers should play and mothers should play? Or is it just who's ever best equipped in the moment?
Yeah, great question. When you have the option of having two people available, I mean, to me, that was the divine order of things for a reason,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because not necessarily like completely gender, because when it comes to it, there are strengths that each one like brings to the table. And when you're truly able to um in a two-parent home, right, when you truly are partners in that area, you really get to know one another, and you are able to compromise on, in order for this ship to run effectively, right? Like we have to know, who's going to lead, who's going to shift, who's going to, have this role, who's better at this, because it makes it run
Right.
better, right?
Some type of structure, right?
Exactly. It makes it
Yeah.
run better when we are operating, as a well, okay, you're getting tired. Hey, I got you on this one. Or this is your area that makes it easy. Hey, can you take this area? Communication is so big on that area, because if we don't communicate, then we automatically assign or attach or take on things that may not fit us as a human being when we're trying to do this teamwork. And then there's clashing that's happening. Things are falling by the wayside. So on that end, it's really great to be able to have that team operating. Now, when there's not two and you have no choice, whether it's a single father or single mom, you got to make it do what it does, because you have like all those things that are now piled on you. And I laughed at this because, just from an honest standpoint, the one thing I've always tried to have with my kids is allowing them to have the freedom to communicate with respect to me, right? So because for me, I didn't have a voice growing up. I didn't feel it was safe to talk, and that really impacted some things. So I wanted different for my children. So I always taught.
You had an old school childhood.
Yeah.
Kids were seen and not heard.
So I always taught them to be able to communicate. And so sometimes, they will be honest, right? Like to the third power, when sometimes don't want to hear it. But one of the things that my kids will say is, sometimes when I am, I feel like now I have to be a protector, like for my children and my home, but that's not a role that truly is assigned to me, right? I love the idea of having a covering, and so now it's like, all right, God, it's me and you. But in my closet, I have this pipe if I need it for protection of my home. But I'm also like very, okay, who's that? Like, what are we doing? Did you lock this? And sometimes it comes out where my personality is not who I'm supposed to show up as, when I have to be that protector, when I have to be that person trying to talk to my son, in a way, and have conversations that are really, to me, it would be more natural for him to have with a gentleman and things like that. So I've allowed mentors to support us, but sometimes they're not always there, and I have to take on that role. And it's so different. It's so draining as a mom to try to so sometimes when we kind of say, and I'm just going to put myself out there, when we say we can do it all or we don't need this, I totally disagree. We have done well, but I have learned how to navigate my plate and bring other people in to support a positive male role model, so that, hey, I need a little bit of reinforcement. Can you talk to my son about this on that end? And so I really appreciate that topic, because it's a very honest one, where sometimes as women, we feel we're falling short when we can't do it all, when truly, to me, it wasn't our calling to take on all those roles and responsibilities. And if there's not a physical man there, then being able to, have that circle that's safe, that you can bring in and help, and realize I may need to tag, my grandfather, uncle, or someone in to support me, is really necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with everything you said, and I had a similar experience from a dad's point of view. And so, after my divorce, my oldest daughter came to live with me full time, and so the divorce happened her senior year in high school, and she went to, of course, prom, and her mom did not have the best relationship during that time, and so I was given the privilege of guiding her through buying a prom dress and how to do her makeup and how to do her hair. And although I felt blessed, it was a privilege to be there for my daughter during that interaction. I just knew that time would have lent itself more to a feminine touch. If she could have had mom in that moment to say, Mom, help me with my makeup, help me with my hair, help me put on my dress, or what shoes should I wear, what jewelry, it'd have been just more natural. It'd have been at ease. And so one of the things that I tried to communicate to her is that we're going to do the best with what we have. However, this is not ideal. Ideal would be both mom and dad are able to partner, even if they're not married, they're able to partner together for the best interest of the child. And so I was really trying to be transparent and honest with her, say, I will do everything that I can for you. I'm just excited to be here and to guide you through it. I was fortunate enough to have some women around me that I could draw information from, and who would help me out during that process. But it just would have lent itself if there was a feminine touch in that moment. And so you're right, there is a deficiency when both mom and dad are not there. You know, when I think about a two-family home, it reminds me of the presence of God because in God there's both male and female qualities. God is nurturing, He is caring, He is loving, He is patient, He is kind. God is also strong, He is a protector, He is a provider. And when you have both mom and dad at home at the same time, the privilege is your children get to experience the full character of God in one home. And I think that is something that it's unfortunate that a lot of children don't get the opportunity to embrace and to feel because how we parent our children directly relates to how they receive and understand God to be. And so it goes very deep.
That's true.
And so I like the fact that you were able to show or at least be able to be self-aware to say, you know what, this isn't ideal. We're going to make it work. We're going to do what we got to do. But ideally, I would also have a partner here who cared for my children as much
Yeah.
as I do.
And it's funny that you talked about it, like and I think I shared before, being able to respect relationships. And this brings that
Hmm.
co-parenting part in there. Like I said, my daughter and her dad have a very close relationship. So when it was homecoming for her, we went to several stores trying to find, whatever, and we couldn't find anything. It was her weekend with her dad, and it was homecoming. I'm like, what are you gonna do? And they went together. They
Yeah,
got the perfect outfit for her, got her hair done. So I got to see a picture of the end result, and she was beautiful. And I was overjoyed. It wasn't like, oh, that was my moment. I was like, thank you. You know what I mean? So this kind of
yeah,
leads to
yeah,
us
yeah.
as
That's
parents,
good.
though, right? Like the dynamics that we have and however we show up. Sometimes when we take on roles that really may not always fit, if that makes sense, where there's support needed, we rob the opportunity for success for our children to achieve because we are putting things in a box where, I'm supposed to have that memory, or I'm supposed to have, that time, when truly it is what it is, right? The end result is having a successful outcome when it comes to those things. And so to me, from a parenting standpoint, being able to navigate some of the nuances that we have or that may pop up, or when it comes to assuming these boxes, we kind of have to open some of those up and put things in the right place, and not be so stuck, and so rigid in how we're showing up, because in the process what's happening is our children might be suffering when we as adults may have these stuck points of what we think should be, or how things should operate.
That's very good. That's very good. So true. So true. I just want to piggyback on something else you said earlier was how you allow your children to speak to you. And sometimes, you give a chance, you give a child the opportunity to talk back, they're going to talk back. You know, one of the things that I placed in my home was this ideal or this standard to my children because I wanted them to feel valued. That was very important to me. You are valuable here. Was this principle of you will always have a voice, but you may not have a vote. You will always have a voice, but you may not have a vote. So I will always consider your feelings. I was always take in consideration what your perspective is. But there are some things that, as dad, that you won't get a chance to vote on. I will be the deciding factor. But are you able to vote on what movie we go see, what restaurant we go to, maybe where we go on vacation? Absolutely, you can put your vote in. But there are some things that it has to go my way because I am the parent here and I am in charge. And by giving my daughters that sense of you're
Yeah.
valuable here about so many things, I began to realize that there was very few things that they actually didn't have a
Mm.
vote on. They had a vote on a majority of the things when we grocery shopping, what got put in the basket, what got taken out of the basket, all of those things, you get a vote in that, but there are some things you don't get a voice in. And so when it came to those moments where they didn't get a vote, they were able to respect it because they said we contribute to this home and we are valuable. And there's so many things that we do have a voice on that these items that we don't have a vote, we'll just leave to dad because who wants that extra
Yeah.
responsibility? Let the grown-ups be the
I love
grown-ups,
that.
And so I think yeah. I thought that was great of you as well to be able to allow your children to feel valuable by being able to give them a voice in their home. Because a lot of us, right, we were brought up old school. Children are seen and not heard. You're quiet when grown people are talking, and all of those
Yeah.
things. Let's
Just
talk.
just to
Mhm.
piggyback what you just shared, I'm thinking because our
Please,
topic,
please.
raising kids and shaping minds. When you think about the principle that you're sharing with your daughters, right? Like when they get into the real world, especially as women, understanding that their voice matters, right? That they do have a say. There may be some jobs that they go into that there may be leadership in certain roles, but to still feel that they're respected enough where they've learned at home how to communicate, how to express, how that's to be a safe place allows them not to have a lot of or harbor a lot of resentment or feelings or feel like my voice doesn't matter or it's not important. So kudos to you, but really thinking about
Yes.
not just in the moment, because we're talking about being mindful and present, but a lot of the things that we plant today are shaping what's going to help them in their next, right, in their future. And so as I hear
Mhm.
you talk about that, it makes me smile because just as women, sometimes you have to really fight to fit in the dynamics of workplace and different things like that. And so being able to have that taught and trained at an early point and understand their voice matters, like it really is going to make a difference in their future too, to shape what that looks like for them also.
I appreciate that. And one of I think the benefiting side effects of that, and this is controversial, what I'm going to say, is the ability to be comfortable with submission. Is to understand that, hey, when I have someone who is loving me in a godly way, when I have a godly leader in front of me who respects my voice on so many things, that if he has to make a decision based on his own reasoning without my input, I can
Yeah,
trust that because I still know that I'm valuable in front of him, and I know that his guiding source is God. And so, if I'm not included in a decision that he has to make, I I can be
that's
okay with that.
good.
So try to make it easy with submission, and then also be a standard of this is how value should look. You should be able to talk, and people should be able to listen and hear what you
Yeah.
have to say. So there's so many, and so I think that's also equally important for boys, for
Mm-hmm.
men, uh, because there are a lot of men who were told you shouldn't have emotions. You just push through. You figure it out and make it happen. But men on the other side, well, boys, we have to be careful. Boys can also be
Yeah.
victims too. And so we need to protect our boys emotionally as well as physically. Girls get a lot of overprotection, and I think boys are underprotected.
Yeah, that's
And we need to tell our boys that your body is just as valuable as girls' bodies are
mm-hmm.
also. We need to tell boys that your voice is just as important and that your emotions are just as important as girls too. It's not so much about how big and strong you are, which is great, and we applaud you for all the accomplishments that you can make in life, but your body and your emotions are just as important as your female
Yeah,
counterparts as
that's
well.
good.
Yeah, yeah. We're going to dive into one particular aspect about parenting and how it shapes us mentally, and that is before you're a parent. I wish we could offer this. I wish we could, like, right after you graduate from high school, you go to a class and it's therapy about your own issues, about dealing with your own baggage. Because I think the best thing you can give your children is a healthy you, but that doesn't always happen. We acquire these beautiful lessons, our children, and we have unresolved issues ourselves. And what we tend to do is to repeat patterns. Well, this is how mama did it. This is how daddy did it. This is how grandma did it. So this is how I'm going to do it, right? And so we find a lot of
Yeah.
cycles that are continuing, that are dysfunctional as we go forward with our own parenting. How important do you think it is for a person to be aware of what is good parenting and what is just actual baggage that they're carrying on and passing down to their
That's
children?
such a good point. Um, it's vital, right? Just from
Yeah.
a personal standpoint, um, you know, I, because I shared, like, in my household, there really wasn't space for conversation and having my voice heard. So for me, when I became, a young adult, counseling was very important, and I sought it out at an early point. And it was necessary, right? Because I went from someone who, as a child that didn't talk, to an adult who really didn't talk either, and kept so much in, which is, thankfully, the person I am now is not that person, but it took the work, right? I had to recognize
Right.
that the way I was going, actually didn't align with who I truly was inside, right? And that's, I think, an important fact to remember. Like, sometimes we can show up as one way, but that truly isn't who we are. It's just what's been happening because of the environment that we've been in. Meaning, I was showing up as someone who people wondered who even had a voice, literally, because they never heard me talk. And now I'm still
Wow.
introverted, meaning, I will listen, and I'm still in rooms and people are like, we still don't hear you talk. But then, I can do podcasts, I can do speeches, I can, when it's necessary, I'm such an advocate. So part of being able to learn when to talk and when to listen, to me,
Hmm.
I take away that as being a positive of my background. So I don't throw it all away. I take away the fact that it allowed me to
Yeah.
be a better listener, but what I had to develop through breaking the
Yeah.
cycle and not repeating some of the trauma of my voice didn't matter, feeling insecure. We'll talk a little bit more maybe when we come back from the break, or after we go through some about the
Absolutely.
different type of
Yeah.
attachments and how that played a part. But what you just said, like, it was vital in transformation of living out purpose, truly feeling like, this is the life I'm supposed to live. And so what you share for everyone is so important, not to repeat traumas and not to let what you've been through dictate like how you live the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And I hear you, Gerard. Gerard is telling us we need to read some comments, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to a commercial. Uh, but before we do, I just got to say this one little thing, and we may want to talk about it after the break. But oftentimes we hold our parents on a pedestal. And because we hold them on a pedestal, especially in the Black community, we tend to hold mothers on a pedestal. And because we do that, we're not able to be critical in looking at their parenting styles and actually identifying that was
Yeah.
dysfunction. We tend to give them a lot of passes and say, well, that's how mom was, and that's how granny was, and that's just auntie. They were dysfunctional. And it takes us to have some critical thinking to go, no, I will not repeat that cycle. I will not berate my children. I will take the time and understand and not parent as a blanket, but parent individually each child according to their personality and their gifts and their talents. We have to also know that parenting is being critical of how you were parented so you don't repeat the cycles that were not beneficial to you.
Correct. Love it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's dive into some of them comments. Thank you so much for the comments. We love the comments. This is one of my favorite parts, is reading the comments. And so we have here, Gerard, you got me have to put on my Gerard is behind the scenes, people. I don't want you to think I'm talking to an imaginary person. So I got to put on my glasses to read this one. It says, I hear you. That's a great point. I feel I can do it, but it definitely does something emotionally within me that drains me, pulls on me in a way that's hard to articulate. I learned to co-parent, still learning. It's not something I saw before. And so it looks like our friend Misha,
Hi,
Misha,
Misha.
hey Misha, is commenting about sometimes how co-parenting can be tricky. Any thoughts around how to make that a smooth connection, a smoother or easier transition as you go into that process of co-parenting?
Yeah, there's so many dynamics, but I think what I've learned from my experience is keep the main thing the main thing. Um,
Mm,
there will be times when personalities will change, or when you're not in the same, like, alignment, and you're healing
hmm.
through your own junk or trauma or whatever that was. The main thing is the well-being of those children that you created, right? And so
Hmm.
learning to not bring that personal part into it. So doing the work within yourself to kind of heal, or have your spaces of outlets that are away from your children so they're not seeing, hearing, because what we want is, we want our children to have the best of both of us, right? When it
Right.
comes to, and if you have a healthy co-parent that is wanting to be involved, and they may still be on their journey too, right? So
Hmm.
the first thing we'll say is pray, because prayer helps a lot when you can't do anything within your own might to change or whatever. God is still working behind the scenes. And if you can trust that and believe that, then it takes away some of the sting that you may be feeling about that. So learning how to set boundaries when it comes to what is communication going to look like, how are we going to exist, and making sure that, that is put out and that is very clear. Making sure your children know that ultimately you want both of them to have a good relationship, to have a good bond, so that they're not feeling I have to choose between this parent or
Right.
that parent.
Yeah.
These conversations, as they, navigate and get older, they have to happen, because there's going to be pulls that they have about, who do I invite here or there? And ultimately, coming to some even ground of how you're going to work together. But there may be bumps in the road, meaning, okay, if we have this setback, when you keep the main thing of making sure those children have a healthy example of what, parents that love them, that want to have their best, that are available for them, and that gives what they can, and what may be missing or lacking, you build your community and your support around that. Because sometimes what both sides may do is, okay, this person isn't showing up like here, so I'm just like, pissed and mad, and I don't have it. And so we start spiraling into the complaint side of it, as opposed to being solution oriented. All right,
Yeah.
if this is what's lacking or missing, then how can I find this? How can I make sure that there is a resource or a person, or whether it's counseling, whether it's, having a community of mentors available. Like, there's one, and I think this is our only comment, so that's why I'm spending a little bit more time on it, because I think it's such a vital point.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
The one thing you shared, that I had to learn a very hard lesson along the journey, is about our kids being not something that we have possession over. For me, God really put me on my face and let me realize that they are a gift. And when I truly understand what that means, like, sometimes we're giving a gift, and sometimes, gifts are taken, we give and we receive, right? When I was able to see my children as that, as opposed to I need to protect and guard and, hold on so tight, that when I'm holding on so tight, they are being smothered in the process. They truly believe. And you can't live as an adult like this. Like, you can't function. But when I was able to release the gift and allow God to give back, and I realize, it is my job to steward them, to take care of them, to pour into them, to realize how I can nurture this gift so it can kind of grow and blossom and do what it was meant to do. There was less stress. There was less tension. So that mindset was a really big factor in me, and really understanding the co-parent journey of the ups and downs, when it isn't always easy to navigate through some of those challenges, by keeping the main thing, which is their well-being, at the forefront.
Man, well said. There's so much I want to say to that. I would need a whole another hour. Uh, you know what? One of the things that you said, that I want to summarize: expect it to be hard. Don't go in here with unrealistic expectations, because you both feel the same way. You both feel like this. I own this little human being here. I own, and so what I say should be the choice, right? That should be made. It is, I think, incumbent on us to already have in place, what do I do when I get offended? Like, how, but before it even happens, before the fit hits the shan, what do I do when I get offended? Already have that in mind. So, great stuff. Uh, Listen, our listeners are saying too. They're saying it's hard. I think co-parenting can be challenging. It's a tricky space. Sometimes it's a day by day process, where you're just like waking up this morning and saying, "How can I not go to jail?" And if you don't go to jail that day, you won. Consider that a win. Uh, I'm
Yeah. And for
exaggerating a little.
me, having a professional counselor along my journey has been vital. I have a male
Mhm.
counselor who I meet with weekly, and I will bring up situations, because I want to be fair. Like, sometimes you have to go beyond, like, if you have a spiritual advisor or just that person who won't just take your side, but will really like look at the best interest, because sometimes we can be blinded by our own like wants and desires and feelings and emotions, and it can get the best of us. So for the past like 6 years, I've been very intentional where weekly we check in, and if there's anything that I've had navigated along that way, like he will call me out, or he will also say, no, this is something you need to like stand strong on. And so I have respected that journey throughout, and it's been vital with helping me make better decisions for raising my children, and when I have to shift some things when it comes to co-parenting also.
Yeah, that's good. A different perspective have, and also sometimes even having an opposite gender perspective is also very beneficial. So great, great, great. Well, let's go to a commercial. We'll come back and we're going to dive deeper into this. We got a lot more things to discuss. Uh, yeah, there's a lot more to discuss. So the best is still yet to come. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
Every man battles something, but not every man has a space to heal. Texarkana, September 27, 2025, at Radiant Church. It's time to create the life you want. Join Jamar Bruce and Gerard Ware for a powerful, purpose-driven experience focused on breaking the stigma behind men's mental health. This life-changing event features a dynamic panel of real conversations, live performances and entertainment, epic giveaways, and special guest appearances. Featuring Sunday Best Season 6 runner-up, Kafia Rollerson, keynote speaker, Gregory McKinney, hosted by nationally renowned comedian Derek Keener. This is more than an event, it's a movement, a place for healing, strength, and community. Don't miss your chance to be a part of something great. Together, let's create the life we want. Secure your spot today at www.lifeiwantevent.com.
I ain't ashamed. Jesus took my guilt and he broke every chain. Mental health is wealth and I'm choosing to heal.
That is the Create the Life I Want men's mental health experience coming up September 27th, Friday at Radiant Church in Texarkana, Texas. It's going to be great. I am so looking forward to this event. I tell you, last night I expressed just how much gratitude I have for the team that is putting this together, because Dr. Jennings, Black men don't get this opportunity a lot. We don't get the opportunity to be in a place where collectively and corporately we're saying, hey, help me be better. And we can do that with no shame and no embarrassment. And there's real resources there in the room that says, hey, I can help you with exactly what you're going through. And so this is a special event. I am super excited about it. So if you are a man, or you love a man, or you ever heard the word man, we want to invite you to come out. And the doors are not just open to men, but it's also open to women, because sisters, we need you. We need you. You are not just important, but you are necessary. And so we want to invite as many women to come out as well, to hear exactly what the struggles that men are going through and how to love us through it, how to help walk us through that journey so that we can be the men that we're supposed to be, so we can be the men that God has created us to be. So if you haven't got your tickets, you want to go to www.lifeiwantevent.com. Get you a ticket. And if you can't come, buy a ticket for someone else and say, hey, look, this is an event that you should be in the house for, because it's just going to be great. I'll be there. Gerard's going to be there. All the team that you've seen here on the podcast. I see Amisha is going to be there. She's going to be praying us in and praying us out. And I'm telling you, this woman is a prayer warrior. It is worth it just to have this woman to come and pray over you. So that's going to be great. They're going to have a dynamic panel. It's going to be good. And I hear that the keynote speaker is pretty dope too. So we're looking forward to it all. It's just going to be really, really great. So yeah. Create the life I want to.
What the date is?
September 27th, next Friday. Yeah, look at my calendar.
I think it's Saturday.
It's a Saturday. Thank you for correcting me and making me better. I appreciate that. Yes, next Saturday.
Awesome. Mark your calendars, y'all.
Yeah.
Mark your calendars. Gregory is the keynote speaker, right?
I am.
All this knowledge is going to be putting out there. So, I've been to a few, if I could, I have to work now on weekends, but I've been to a few of the events and they are just so uplifting and inspiring. encouraging. And I just love it. I love the fact that this space is cultivated for, to support our men, but also understand the importance of having women like pour into them and be available and hear the information so it's reinforced. Because what we're talking about today, like in order to build, whether we are, doing it as 2-parent homes, single parent homes, whatever that may look like, we are a community and we are a family all together. And so when we're able to support one another, be there for one another, our kids survive, they do better, they thrive when they know, what, I have an extended family beyond my own current situation. So despite the fact that a 1-parent, 2-parent, I have a community that's willing to pour in and help fill that gap. So I don't have to feel like I'm lacking anything. And so this is like what you all are doing with that kind of helps that. These shows help that. So I just want to thank everyone for chiming in, but also like show up. There will be something that you will be able to take away and apply into your life. And so I definitely just want to pull that plug to kind of, encourage everyone. Every time I've come from any events that has been done, it's been very life-changing and inspiring for me also.
Yeah, yeah. And what is particularly unique about this one is that it's going to deal with mental health from a 360 standpoint. So there's a lot of resources out there that talks from a professional or a clinical standpoint about mental health, and then you also have opportunities where it's more for spiritually based. And so here we're going to have a combination of both, where you can have both God and a therapist, and it not be a compromise in any way. I don't think God is intimidated with us using common sense, that our faith actually pushes us to use whatever resources that are available, because God shows up sometimes in a psychologist, in a counselor, in studies, in statistics, and those type of things. And so we're going to have it all there. And I'm super excited just to be a part of it. The team has done a great job. And so looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gregory, something that Gerard had want to make sure we put across, where I just want to kind of highlight also, when it comes to parenting and the parent and child relationship, understanding like the different attachment style that exists
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how it kind of plays a part and stuff like that. So I wasn't sure if you had that on your list or if you wanted me to kind of chime in on it. I just want to make sure we touch base on it.
Absolutely.
It's
We
been
don't
such
want
a
to miss that.
conversation.
It is. And you know what? You took the words right out of my mouth. That's where I was diving into. I was going to
Awesome.
next, discuss how our childhood affects our relationships and how that forms our attachment styles, how we show up as a boyfriend, as a girlfriend, how we show up as a great lead into it. So let's both talk about it together. So there's generally 4 major attachment styles, right? And so they both kind of are a symbol of how people relate to other people. And some can be complex, and some are more compatible than others themselves in one of these 4 quadrants. And so what's first on your list? I got them right in front of me, but I don't want to steal any of your thunder. Did you want to introduce the 4 styles to us?
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'll flow with
So
you.
thank you. So we have an anxious attachment style. And so people that have an anxious attachment style are people who generally show up very insecure. They always are questioning, are you really there for me? Do you really love me? You find yourself having to work extra hard in a relationship with someone who has an anxious attachment style, because they need a lot of reinforcement, right? They need a lot of pat on the back, a lot of stroking. They need a lot of comforting, just to feel secure in that relationship. That particularly that directly relates to the childhood, where the child didn't feel emotionally connected to their parents, where the love that they received was performance based, right? You got applauded for making good grades, or getting the winning touchdown, for winning the beauty pageant, or whatever it may have been. And so what happens is that when love is only given to you based on performance based, then what happens is that you don't feel loved for just being you. And so when you're in a space and you're just showing up as yourself, and you don't have any particular thing to bring to the table other than just your own natural self, you question.
That is so true. Gregory will be joining us shortly. He was sharing about the anxious attachment. And I can definitely relate to that one. I think I shared with you all who've been listening in that initially that was the type of attachment that I probably can most relate to, just because it was one of those where I didn't feel safe that my voice was able to be heard, or that it was respected in a certain end. And so I had to really learn. That was part of where my therapy work really kind of came in, and learning how to change that from more of anxious type into, we're going to kind of push into another type that we have here, and that what we all kind of hope to achieve for, which is the secure attachment. So we've talked about, Gregory introduced the anxious attachment. Another one is the secure attachment. And so when we think about this one, this is when there is security, where there's safety, where the child feels understood, they feel valued, they feel like their voice matters. And what that looks like when it comes to parenting style is, you have a parent who is responsive to the needs of what they're seeing. You have a parent who's consistent when it comes to making decisions and showing up, where that child knows what to expect, where they don't feel like, one time I might get this response if I do something, and I may get a more aggressive response if something else happens. Like, that's not what you're really seeing. And so really kind of understanding the importance of what that looks like, and having that consistency when you're showing up. The other one is being emotionally attuned to the child's need. That's something else that's very, very important, is making sure that when you notice that child like struggling with something, that you're able to find the right resources to be able to support them. That's very important also along the way. And then the other part of it is making sure that you encourage that they have a sense of independence, but you also give them their support along the way, where you give them opportunity to try out things, but they know, what, if something doesn't go right, then I'm going to have that backup in the process. And so that's the secure one. So Gregory talked about the anxious type of attachment. Another one, number 2, would be a secure type one. And I'm going to just pause for a second and see if Gerard could help us to make sure that Gregory is able to get back in the show and join you all before I go on to the other points. All right, I know they're working on that. So while they're working on getting Gregory back, I'm going to go on to the other 2 types of attachment. So another one is the avoidant attachment. This is where the children, they often learn to suppress their emotions and their needs, right? They don't feel like it matters. They don't feel like anyone's going to, hey, he's back.
Hi, people. I'm back.
I was just finishing up on number 3, the attachment type, the avoidant one, where
Oh yeah, that's the troublemaker. We don't
they
like
don't
them.
feel like their needs are going to be met, so you're not going to hear what they need to say. They are distant, they're kind of aloof when it comes to some of that. They at times they become they have a parent who's emotionally not available to them. They can't trust that parent's going to be there. It looks like they have a lack of emotion, like they're not feeding that emotional needs that are those youth have when it comes to it. So those are other things that you may see with that avoidant type personality attachment.
You can say a lot about an avoidant attachment style, but we're just going to keep it real. We're going to call them drama, is what they are. There are a lot of drama because they are never satisfied. And nothing is ever their problem. There's a lack of accountability when you are with someone who has an avoidant attachment style. I always want to point the finger back. I'm this way. I wouldn't have to act that way if you would have had your stuff together and this and that. It's always drama with them. And so, yeah, those people have really kind of a lot of, they're comfortable in chaos. And so they bring chaos with them, which is another interesting thing when parenting. You find that there are households that you grew up in that are very chaotic that as an adult, unless there's chaos, you feel weird about it. And so there are some people who I know that peace is uncomfortable with. And so the avoidant attachment style is one of those people where peace just makes them feel uneasy.
Awesome. Yeah, so far we've done the anxious, we've done the secure, the avoidant, and then there's one more on the list.
Disorganized.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. The disorganized is a person who lives in confusion. They generally say go away, and then they'll also say don't leave me at the same time. So it's like a Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde type of thing that you're dealing with here. They're not really, they don't have a lot of clarity around what their needs are or how to show up. And so they're generally trying to wing it and trying to land the plane, but never really fully can. And so you find yourself in a relationship where there's a lot of unbalance in it. What would you think? What would you have to say about the disorganized attachment style?
Yeah, very confusing. When we think about our children and what they need, the importance of stability
Yeah.
plays a really big part. And so when you have that disorganized, it leads to a lot of unexpectedness, disorganization. You may see things affected when it comes to, okay, if I'm having all this, then, how am I supposed to manage my own emotions if there's so much chaos going on? Because
Hmm.
when it comes to being able to show up for our children, they model what we see. They learn by what that environment looks like for them. And so if we want them to be secure and stable with what they're dealing with in their young minds, they have to see that kind of displayed for themselves. And so
Yeah.
that's why it really kind of can play havoc on them and their behaviors also.
Yeah, and you know what, Dr. Jennings, was an interesting takeaway from this is that when you're doing any type of personality trait assessment, the truth is we all have a little bit of everything inside of us, right? I know that we all would like to say that we have this secure attachment style, that I'm healthy, I've done my work, and I'm good to go. I'm good with God, I'm good with man. But the truth of the matter is all of us display these characteristics throughout the lifetime of a relationship. We all will show up anxious, we all will show up avoidant, we all will show up disorganized, and at times we will show up secure. And so, but what's really important is for us to be aware of, where am I at now?
Yeah.
How am I showing up now? How is my partner perceiving my personality, and how am I relating to my partner? And that's where that good communication that you spoke about earlier comes into play, because you may think that you're showing up in a secure way, but you're really showing up avoidant. You're not taking accountability. You're showing up anxious. You're showing up disorganized.
Awesome. No, that's
Yeah.
good. If the audience has any questions or whatever, feel free to kind of share, along the journey. We love to make sure you understand that your voice matters along the show. And if you have any comments or anything like that, because we definitely want to take time to address those also. But yeah, that's so true. And I agree with you. I was sharing, briefly when it had kind of glitched off a little bit that the anxious one was like growing up for me was what kind of showed up a lot initially. And so really working through understanding, how this played into how I was showing up. And I didn't want that to be passed on to my children. And so when you talked before about, and the one thing that we keep echoing is, sometimes when I've spoke to parents, it's like, I've never really thought about going back and, working through things or whatever, and I don't do it in a judgment way, but it's like, as your child is navigating through some of the things that they're experiencing now, it's so important for you to be able to address it from a healed and healthy state and not bring in things that you may have utilized as coping strategies that may not have been effective into what you're teaching that child, because they are whole new, human beings with their own experiences. And so learning
Hmm.
how to address them and not bring some of our own past tendencies into that that may not have been addressed is really important also.
Yeah, yeah. You know that sometimes we put our children in prisons that they don't deserve.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
there have been some very unfortunate conversations I've had with women who have had sexual assaults when they were girls, and so they tend to be overprotective of their daughters, and so much so that the daughters naturally will rebel as they mature and they get more and more freedom as they get older, and
Mhm.
so there becomes what we find is that there becomes this cycle of the prison that I'm in. I'm putting the same prison on my children as well. When it is natural for a parent to want to protect their children, sure, but we have to be conscious of, am I putting my issues on my children, or are these normal, healthy ways to parent? And sometimes that gets tricky because you are aware of the dangers, and parents tend to go to worst case scenarios when it comes to thinking about their children and protecting their children. But there also has to be a degree of just kind of reality based thinking that, okay, I don't want to make this more difficult than it has to be for my children growing up. Like, if you grew up in a violent household, or you grew up where there was not a lot of financial structure, you tend to overcompensate in those particular areas. And guess what? The children can feel that stress. The stress that a parent carries ripples into the child's spirit. And so the child tends to become overstressed about their weight, or overstressed about financing, or overstressed about their protection. And so we have to make sure that we're giving our child an opportunity to experience life in the most healthy way possible. And so going back to echoing what you were just saying, sometimes we do have to take a pause and go back and go, is this my issue, or is this something that is a real issue
Yeah,
in the
well,
current
that's
moment?
good. That's good. And I
Yeah.
see that there's a comment. We're excited to, let's see. All right, would you like me to read it?
Yeah, you read that one. I'll
Okay, I
put on my
got it.
glasses. Okay.
This is one for, is it polite? Hopefully
Polite.
I pronounced that right.
Hey, polite.
Okay. We're glad that you're joining us. I've been seeing you chiming in and giving feedback. So thank you so much for that. So her question is, what advice would you give a single mom raising a 14-year-old boy, and it is hard for him to accept his dad has a stepson the same age as him, and he barely gets to see his dad, but someone else gets to enjoy his dad? It's hard feeling that void as a mom because he is doing it at the
Where he sees things his way and see him for who he really is. Yeah. That's a tricky one. 14-year-old boy who has a challenging relationship with his dad. Uh, Woo, wow. I would probably first thing that pops into my mind is get him into a mentorship program where there is other masculine leadership that he can pull from, to realize that dad is a great source, but he's not the only source. We don't want to put any parent, the mom or the dad, in the position of they are the only outlet, the only path for the child's happiness. And that, again, life is just one series of pivots after another. So allow the child to be able to get what he needs from other positive male role models. And also at the same time, um, when you say see him for who he really is, speaking about the father, we have to always challenge our children and push our children to ask the parent, what's your side of the story? And as you get older, I think that becomes increasingly important, especially for fathers that maybe weren't as present, or maybe didn't show up the way that we think that they should have showed up, is to go, Dad, okay, no judgment here, but what's your side of the story? We're quick to put labels on it in a way that is dismissive of the journey that that father is taking. We don't know what battles he may be facing. We don't know what challenges he may be going through, and we tend not to want to give grace. I think too quickly, but before we actually know what is at the root, because my father was not a perfect man. But it wasn't until I became a man myself that I fully understood the weight and the gravitas of being a father and a husband. And so I can understand how a man can get pushed to some limits, to where he shows up in ways that are not always positive or productive. I didn't repeat those habits, but when I matured, I literally remember saying to myself, "Oh, I get it. I get it. I get why you behave that way. I understand how that pressure can make you feel this way." So, first things first, you want to give him around positive male role models outside of his father. Don't make his father the end all be all. But then also give your son the encouragement to ask his father, what's your side of the story?
No, that's good. And you know, when the reason why I created Boys Matter to Men, which is a mentorship program, for boys
Hmm.
ages 8 to 18, it was for that reason. Like, I realized that, when I went through a divorce, my ex was in the military. And so, whether we liked it or not, he wasn't always going to be there, because he, would have to PCS. And so realizing that, if we had godparents, I would reach out to them. But I realized that other people don't have that so accessible for them. And so that was one of the reasons. But, in your area, you may not have the same type of mentorship. And sometimes it's hard to find, a place that you feel safe, to be able to open up your child to, just with everything going on. So, I think there's, as a single mom, understanding, there's wisdom with not trusting everyone, but also like really like doing your homework. Sometimes if certain schools are now, opening their doors, I know in our local area they are, for mentorship and different programs and within the community. And so that becomes a resource that may have already been kind of vetted, in that regard. So really like look into it, learn into it, because what you don't want is to feel, oh, I have this mentor, but then this person like jumps in and then they're gone, and they're not willing to like be there, consistently. And so that only adds more, kind of trauma to your son if he has someone who he thinks, oh, now I can protect, but this person isn't dependable. So as a mom, I would just say, really make sure that you do your research, in the mentorship program that you're looking into, whether it be attached to school, whether it be attached to churches, really kind of seeking those out, because whoever you start to kind of, bring around that child, like not everyone who says they're a mentor is a good influence.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's positive, important to know, because
Yeah.
sometimes, you really have to really like assess that, because you don't want the person that you think who's mentoring to live one way and to say one thing, but yet live another life. And
Right.
eventually your child is seeing that too. So there's a lot of dynamics to it, but understanding there are other resources out there. So please, look for those. The other one is there may be a time necessary where, counseling or some type of mental support, is necessary, because that does kind of play a part, on our children. I had to do that for my son and seek out professional counseling, because like I said, there was, a distance. And so I realized we were seeing more anger behaviors and different things like that. Mental health issues was a part. And so by having a counselor that he regularly can kind of talk to and express the frustration to, and not let mom have to be that punching bag, was really important too. So just wanted to kind of share from an honest standpoint what I've kind of done to navigate some of those, from when my son had his breakdown at 14 to 19 now, and doing, very well. But he has the supports now that we realized he needed along the journey.
Yeah, yeah. Well, God bless you in your journey. I'm glad to hear your son's doing better.
Mhm.
One other caveat I would add is you want to be careful not to demonize the other parent or demonize the gender of the other parent. And we don't want to use phrases like all women behave that way or all men are this way too, because that creates a friction within inside of the child that I don't want to be part of this group, right? And so they become so isolated that they try to become this imaginary creature and not a human being with feelings and thoughts and temptations and failures and fumbles. You are a human being. And so let's not, I would encourage parents not to demonize the gender of the opposite parent, as well. That just creates a turmoil and a struggle. Like, how can I rise above this gender that I'm living in? I am a man. How can I be something more than a man? No, just be a man. Be a human being who has strengths and weaknesses. But just try to make better choices along the way that are in your best interest. So it's a complex thing. There's a lot to be said about it at
Yeah,
home.
that was a great question. Thank you for asking, and your vulnerability of being honest, and seeking, support and, input. So you're welcome.
Wow, this time has just gone by, but I want to add one other caveat before we leave, before we wrap up, about how sometimes parents make their children the center of their world, and how at times that does, and well, that does seem honorable. It can also be dysfunctional at times to make the child the center of the home and also the center of the parent's life. And that puts, I think, unneeded pressure on the child to be something that they shouldn't be, which is the source of the parent's happiness. And then also it gives them a sense of entitlement that I think that no human being should actually have, to think that they're always going to be the center of attention in every room that they're in. Can you talk to us a little bit about putting more emphasis on the child in your life rather than cultivating a life for your own that also includes a child?
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. A good point. I can tell you the, right thing, and I can tell you what I struggle with that.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I do feel that as we navigate, as parents, right? Some of us have waited like our whole have struggled to have a child, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
There's been losses along the way. When we see how fragile time is and what's happening to our children, it really does make you have to like do a total, new perspective, right? When you
Yeah.
think about the safety of our children, it used to be where, they could go outside and play. We always talked about that. And now it's not like that anymore, right? There's a possibility
Right.
where that child goes outside and they can, someone can pick them up, or, something can happen. And so there's so many now like fears that can exist. But with God, we have to understand the importance of we can't live a life of fear, right? And so really being able to understand that and understand when you take the time as a parent, whether you're a two parent or single parent, when you take the time to start with you and you take the time to cultivate your relationship, where the scriptures that talk about protection, when you speak life through the word of God, if you're a Christian, over your family and over your children and what you're standing on, then there's ability to be able to let go and not feel that you have to be the one to do it all, because that is worrisome. It can be such a mental struggle, such a struggle on your health when you're neglecting taking care of yourself, because you have now made this child, their activities, everything they're involved with, be the center of your world, and to where you no longer exist. You feel like fume. And sometimes we see that in two or one parent, because you have more children and you have both of you running and you never get to
That's
see
right.
each other as a relationship.
Yeah. And the
Or for
marriage suffers too. Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Or for yourself as a single, you never take the time to give yourself the self-care that you need to pour into your cup so that you can do what you need to do. And as a result, we have a further breakdown of relationships. Like you said, when it comes to marriages, we have a breakdown of ourselves, our body, our
Hmm.
health, and we're not able to sustain at that pace. And what it does to the children, it does at times, some of them get this sense of entitlement where it's like, you know what, since you've worked all this and you've given me this and I haven't seen, the effort put, I just see the end result. I feel like it's easy and I'm expecting that, and I lose respect for, what's given to me and things like that. And so really understanding that we can do more harm than good when we
Hmm.
put that child as being the center. We pour everything. We don't really reflect on how we're truly parenting from a perspective that's growing them, that's nurturing, that's shaping them, like the title of this show here, which is so valuable. And so the importance of that. The one thing when I said personally, what I'm still learning through and growing through is, because of everything that's happened, I have like avoided certain areas of my life, like relationship wise. Like I am very cautious of who I bring around my children. And I just made the choice that because I don't trust a lot of people, I haven't dated in 10 years after my divorce, because I really was hesitant about who my energy went out to, and not being able to keep my children safe in an area. And so those are things that I'm still learning. They're a little bit older now, and I'm still, I find myself, if they still need me, oh, I gotta like forget about trying to date again. So that's some personal things that I still have to realize that at some point, I need to think about that side. But for me, it's been a matter of trying to protect them and making sure that they've been safe along their journey also, with that. So just wanted to kind of chime in on both ends for that, Gregory.
Wow, that was great information. And we have Polite again saying he is the only child. And you're absolutely right that you definitely agree with that. Even with the only child, they should not still be the center of attention in the home. I think it is fair and responsible for us to let our children know that sometimes you're not in the spotlight. It's someone else's turn to shine, and that equips them for the real world when they don't always win the race, that they're not crumbled or crippled by that. Like, it's just life. It's okay. You'll be okay. You're going to survive. Great perspective. I wish we had a whole nother hour to talk about dating and parenting and how to show our children as single parents how do you date responsibly. Man, that's a great topic. You just made the next show easier for me. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to invite you back. Come on next Thursday. Um, but before we go, our time is almost up. I wanted to just give you an opportunity to talk about any points that you thought were particularly important about mental health, how to parent, how to be aware of ourselves. If there any information you would like to share about the topic at hand, and then also please let the people know how they can contact you, how they can communicate with you, get in touch with you if they would like to work with you as well.
Yeah, no, thank you. This has been a rich conversation. Like, I think we went over time, but it was just such a heavy topic, and I was excited to be on it. And so, whether you're listening to the live or whether you're listening to the replay, understanding that parenting isn't just something that you walk into and you walk through, right? There are going to be bumps in the road. There are going to be, times where you have to pause and you really like reflect on or get support along that journey to get to like the next point of it, right? But the most important thing from this conversation is when you're able to understand like the stuff that may have happened in the past in regards to your upbringing, you don't want to bring the negativity of that hasn't been addressed, that hasn't been healed, that hasn't been worked on into your current situation, your future family, right? Because it only repeats. It will only repeat itself, and that's not what we want. And so learning, no one's perfect, but what we expect to do is to show a better example, to be able to show up so that we're able to keep, and I'll go back to it, to keep the main thing, right? To making sure we raise healthy children that are thriving, that become young adults that are able to live their life in a healthy way, not the life that we want for them or, the things that we, have envisioned, but realizing they are their own individuals. And it is our job to treat that gift just like that it's a precious gift that we want to pour into, that we want to nurture so that it's able to be the gift that keeps on giving in a positive way to the other. So I'll share that. And then if you want to kind of connect with me on social media, I am, my company is Remember You Matter Coaching. So that's me on Instagram. And then on Facebook, it is Elizabeth Carter Jennings. And I have a lot of different communities, whether it's mentorship, whether it's women groups, whether it's, I actually have an empowering parents and caregivers to raise thriving children. And that's a private Facebook group where I kind of pour information in also. So if you connect with me under Elizabeth Carter Jennings, I can kind of route you to those other areas if you're looking for support in a community to kind of grow yourself in as a parent or looking for something for your children also.
You're busy. That's a lot that you do. Wow. But you are busy making the world a better place. And for that, we are grateful. And we are grateful that you joined us tonight. Your input has been valuable and very, very, just outstanding. So thank you so much for bringing your gift and bringing you to the show tonight. Parenting is tricky. Dr. Jennings, I used to think that parenting was God has given you this marble slab and you have a chisel and a hammer, and it's your job as a parent to chip away at all the bad things that are not needed in order to form this beautiful structure. My thought process has changed, though. My thought process around parenting is this. Every child, the children that we are given are a gift. We are stewards over that. But much like a seed that is planted, God has already decided what that seed will blossom and become. It is our responsibility as a parent to make sure that the garden is a safe, healthy environment where that seed can now grow and it can bloom properly. And so we have to take our hands off of telling our children what they should become and give them an opportunity to flourish and be what God wants them to become, because God is their real parent. We are just stewards. God loves them more than we do. And he gives us an opportunity to participate in their growth and development. But God loves them most, and God has loved them first. And so we should look at our children as seeds that we get the opportunity to create an environment for, so they can blossom and bloom to be what God wants them to be, not what we want them to be.
Wow, I love that. That is powerful. And then on here, this is another resource. If you're looking to connect a little bit more, one of the things we talked about is sometimes we live off of fear as opposed to faith. We really have to trust our children with God. And if there's areas that we are working on, then we have to do the work. And so this is a free resource. If you're interested and you want to connect with me further, you can go to reclaimhernow.com. And if you scroll down, there is a link to download your free 5-day devotional and journal. And it gives you scripture. It talks about kind of the top 5 things that sometimes we struggle with when it comes to activating our faith. And it gives you a journal prompt on how to work through that so that that's not a barrier in whatever you want to achieve, whether it's being a great parent, whether it's achieving something career-wise. This is my gift for you all along the way. And so feel free to go to reclaimhernow.com to download it. And you're also able to kind of join our community if you're looking for further support to kind of help you to grow also. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Awesome. A lot of great information there. And yeah, please reach out to Dr. Jennings. As you can tell from tonight's show, she's just a wealth of information, and I know you'll be better for connecting with her. And so once again, we were just excited to have you part of the show. And I did mean it. I want to have you back talking about dating and parenting, how the two can sometimes be it could be good and it could be bad. So we're gonna talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're gonna get you a boo. It's almost cuffing season. We're gonna get you booed up, Dr. Jennings. I will take all the applications and I will review them before I let you meet these gentlemen. So y'all got to go through me first.
I'm 100% behind that.
All right. I got high standards. I got 2 daughters, so those high standards for my daughters is going to apply to Dr. Jennings. So
I love it.
Not just anybody. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. The goal here at the Floor is Yours podcast is to bring real and relevant conversations to you. We want to be a blessing to all of our watchers, and so I think tonight we did it. But don't forget to Create the Life I Want event happening September 27th, Texarkana, Texas. Radiant Church. It's going to be on like Donkey Kong. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be great. We look forward to communicating with you guys next time. You never know, so you want to stay in touch. We might just pop up tomorrow. You never know when we'll show up. So you want to make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this episode, and follow us on all social media platforms so you can always be in the know. We love you. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, peace, love, and have grease. We out.
Need another, this one here really do it for you. Baby, look for you.